All right. Thank you for the invitation, Sonia, and thanks to Professors Parks and Collins. The positivity is definitely sorely needed, and I appreciate everything you guys had to say. So I run the Jazz Studies program, which is in its second full year. Of my six classes, one of them is a lecture class. Five of them are performance-based classes, so lab classes, where the students are live in the room and we create and we collaborate together and I give them feedback, recital classes, ensembles, that kind of thing. I also teach trumpet lessons, face-to-face, in-person trumpet lessons for the applied music program. So when this all started coming down, it was and continues to be completely overwhelming. I feel like my classes in particular adaptable to an online format, and the immediate reaction was, how do I do this without turning everything into a lecture class? Um, how do I keep the creativity going in the 8 weeks of collaboration that we've had with some really, really highly talented students? How do we keep that going? So I shared a little bit with my dean, and he passed my email on to Sonia the other day, just about some solutions that we've kind of discovered here in the music program. The one of the most difficult things is that for an ensemble class, for a music class, our big final event is the final exam. It's a concert, so we practice and we perform for weeks and weeks and weeks, and then put on a big public event. And all of those have been canceled. So we've lost our end project. We've lost all of our goals that we work towards and practice for the entire semester. And many of my students are professional musicians. They work and they've lost months of work. You know, I have personal friends who are freelance artists and musicians who have just seen, months and months of preparation and income just completely wiped out. So it's difficult. My students are taking it hard. But as I've discovered just in chatting with them over the last couple of weeks, their will to work is still there. They still have that urge and that desire to make something. And really what's even more surprising to me is that they want to respond. They feel like they need to respond to the situation. And so I've been trying to play around with the technology and discovered this article on NPR called Panic Goji. Yeah, there's a quote right there. And the idea that, why, which was what I was struggling with, why should my students' creativity be limited by my technological ability? That I was struggling with. How do I, keep from just, consolidating what they're doing and, what I'm able to do or what I'm able to pull off online. So this quote really stuck out to me, and you should check out the article by Robin DeRosa about the idea being to help our students feel included in the process of rethinking education for a challenging time. If we can go to the next slide. I'll give you a little peek into what we're working on now. So in my jazz combos class, I've got 3 groups. Each group has between 8 and 10 students in it. And I've asked them to use Zoom and breakout rooms in Zoom where I can kind of come in and help and guide the process a little bit, but to collaborate, instead of working towards a final performance, what they're going to be doing is creating an original audio video project for our social media, for BC Jazz social media. I've asked them to rethink the idea of collaboration. So we've had 8 weeks of in-person collaboration. Now let's rethink what we can do in a digital environment and think about how can you collaborate, how can you create music and art with someone who's not in the room with you. They need to figure out what tools they have available. So some of them have access to audio software, recording software, microphones, various instruments, other skills. I have students who have, illustration, animation type skills, lyricists, songwriters, and just to create like a Google document or something where they can share and kind of take stock of what tools they have available, asking them to explore new processes. So in like a DIY kind of way, looking at artistic processes, collage and music mashup, remix. The Exquisite Corpse is an interesting one if you're not familiar with that. This is a game that the surrealist painters used to do where they would fold a sheet of paper into different segments and each artist would complete a drawing on one segment without looking at the others. And then they would pass it to the next painter. The next one would complete their segment and so on. And then they unfold the picture and see this sort of like collage. It's a sort of extension of the idea of collage, but each person kind of having their own creative input into this total picture. So we're looking at some of those things for inspiration. And I told them, don't try to make something that we could have made 2 weeks ago, because immediately they were sort of groaning about the fact that it's not going to be polished. It's not going to sound great. It's not going to sound like we're in a studio. Well, of course not. We need to really exploit the limitations of the time and of the technology that we have access to and try to just make something that's real. If got a real heavy kind of even ugly aesthetic, let's use what we have access to and use what's in front of us to create something for the moment. And then finally I asked them to let the times guide their creativity. So initially I was trying to be sensitive to the fact that for a lot of our students, school is an escape from the difficulties of what's going on. School is a way for them to kind of focus their minds elsewhere. And with my students, they're creative types, they're artists, and they really, really took off on the idea of creating something together using what they had in front of them and creating something that's a response to the times that we're in. So I told them, like, explore, talk, have sessions where you just open up without me in the room, but just talk to each other about the anxiety and the fear and the loneliness and the uncertainty. And we've been talking about this bizarre mix that we all feel of complete normalcy and emergency going on all at the same time. And what can you do to be creative in the face of that? So if we can go to the next slide. This week, I've been having listening sessions with my students. So in the large ensemble, we get together on Zoom and I play some YouTube videos and some music and we talk about it. So this week we've been sharing some music by Nina Simone, who was an incredible singer and pianist and wrote a lot of music and songs that responded to issues during her era, during the civil rights period. And this quote, I'm going to actually talk to my students and share this with them this evening, but she talks about an artist's duty being to reflect the times, right? She says, I choose to reflect the times and the situations in which I find myself, and that to me is my duty. And at this crucial time in our lives, when everything is so desperate, when every day is a matter of survival, I don't think you can help but be involved. And she was talking about 1968 and what was going on in the world, but I think this is equally relevant to us now. She says, how can you be an artist and not reflect the times? That to me is the definition of an artist. So I'm just encouraging my students to use their creativity, to not be afraid to dig deep into the experience that they're experiencing right now, to create, to use this time. Don't be a passive bystander. And we look forward to sharing what we come up with all of you very soon. Thank you.